Welcome to Pandora's Awareness Podcast, a place where we collect stories and circulate life-changing wisdom. I am your host, Asher, and our guest today is Rita and Hayden. And today's theme is around fear. Fear is something that we all experience. Some of us are master at it, and some of us are not. And today we got two incredible guests that's going to share our experiences around fear, whether past, present, or in the future. And I would love for the folks that are joining us live to go ahead and put hashtag live in the chat, wherever you're joining us from. And if you're catching this on replay, go ahead and put hashtag replay in the chat. And I would love for Hayden to go ahead and just give us a little bit about you, Hayden, where you're hailing from, what you specialize in, how you adding value to the world, who you've been a hero to, so forth and so on, if you don't mind.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Asher. And hello to the listeners. I am originally from Australia. I currently reside in the UK, and my wife and I are planning to move to Europe. Which country? What's next to Spain? What's that country next to Spain? On the left.
Portugal?
Portugal. Yeah, we're going to move to Portugal next. That one. So we consider ourselves world travelers. We take our two children with us, Philippa and Cassius. Philippa's 3, Cassius is 5 months old. They're currently in Spain while I'm here working away in the UK. And for work, I'm a coach. I'm a mindset and performance coach. I specialize in the mindset of business owners and entrepreneurs,
Mm,
particularly what we're talking about tonight: removing fear, removing stress, removing doubt, removing uncertainty, all those nasty things that business owners confront, especially in the first few years of business, that they get a grasp on it. And what we create together is confidence, clarity, peace of mind, power, performance, all the good stuff that we're looking for. Tonight on fear, oh my, I was the most scared young man you could imagine, terrified. And I always just wanted to be my dad, who I saw as brave and powerful and capable. And I used to be so ashamed of myself that I wasn't that type of man. I've worked
mm.
very hard to become fearless. So I believe I'll have a lot of value to bring tonight. Thank you, Asha.
Incredible. All right, world traveler. All right, Rita, talk to us, please.
Hi, I am Dr. Rita. I am a social justice consultant and a coach, and I support and equip change makers to drive systemic transformation. So the whole coaching industry is really designed for people to prevent ourselves from self-sabotage. It's like, how do we declare that we want something in our life and actually trot our way there? And I find that a lot of the coaching industry is designed for entrepreneurs and the business arena, but not a lot of coaches focus actually on social impact and
Mm.
social justice. And so that's my specialty. What I do is help people not only overcome fears, as you were saying, Hayden, that's kind of what most coaches do, which is kind of help us become the leaders and the people we need to be to carry through what we want to carry through in our lives, but also strategize in the face of systems that push back in ways that allows us to make the impact that we want to make in the world.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rita. How you say your
Yes,
last name?
Fierro, but Dr. Rita's fine.
Fierro. Okay,
Dr.
okay.
Rita is just formal enough. It helps me
Just,
not forget
just
that I have
formally
a
enough.
PhD and I don't need to hear my last name. It's good.
Dr.
Thank
Rita.
you.
Oh,
Dr. Rita works.
okay, so Dr. Rita, let's go with you first here. And if you had to share with us some of your earlier relationship around fear, what was that like for you if you had to share with us and then where you are right now when it comes to fear?
Oh, wow. I love that question. So, in 2020, I wrote a book called Digging Up the Seeds of White Supremacy.
Mm,
And the short version of the story of the book is that I was in a place where I knew that as a coach and organizational development consultant, that the intention that a company is founded on gets embedded in the company so that once the founders move on, like that's still part of the culture. So if
mm,
fear was the initial motivation of a company, like whatever the desire was, if it was independence, then they're going to attract a lot of people who are independent. If it's fear, then they're going to attract a bunch of people who are fearful. So
interesting.
my So my question was, given our systems and the institutions in the United States and the ways we know they perpetuate inequality across 500 years, what was the original intention?
Mm.
And so I actually studied 500 years back, the first law in each of our institutions of 10 institutions. And what it came down to was fear in every single one of them.
Wow.
So before writing the book, I thought I was bold. And then after writing the book, I came to the conclusion that any time that I make any decision based in fear, I'm supporting the system of white supremacy, nationally and internationally. So the book required me to be bolder and stronger and braver than I ever thought was possible. And it helped me really get clear in a moment to moment basis that fear is actually a vibration. Like there's an actual feel of fear. And I now am very clear about the vibration of it and the feel of it. And I'm not going to pretend that I never act from fear, but I'm a lot more aware when I do.
Hmm. I see your head going up and down there, Hayden. Sound like something came on for you when she was speaking about her experience. What are your thoughts?
I was interested when Rita said what was their original intention
Mm.
and that they were based in fear. I thought that was very interesting, a very interesting perspective. I'd love to expand that.
Mm. Okay. So Rita, we're gonna stick on the intention here because I really think intention is something that we should kind of like navigate. Sometimes we were looking for the impact, but oftentimes we got to see what was the intention is in the beginning. So doing your research and you writing your book, what are some other things that you discover that you wasn't aware of that you would like to share?
Well, um, some of it was discovery and some of it was just kind of integrating, like seeing things in a new way because they came together in a new way. First of all, out of the 10 institutions, while I said the bottom line is they were all grounded in fear, there were all three variations of fear. So that I call control, safety, and saviorism. So two institutions were based in safety, four institutions were based in control, four institutions were based in saviorism. And to me, those are all fear. People often ask me, what about power? I'm like, power over someone else is actually control, and that's
Mm,
also fear. I would argue that power is also fear.
mm,
Power to do something is not fear, that comes from courage. The power over someone is also comes from fear. Either we're scared of the other person being stronger than us, or we're scared of the other person not taking care of our needs. So we believe we have to take care of our needs above them. Um, so I would say that was a major finding from the book, which blew my mind, was those three variations, because then it forced me to pay super attention to when I was trying to control situations, when I was trying to keep myself safe, and when I was trying to save other people, because those are also fear with
mm.
also very different vibrations of them.
I
So
gotta
I'll
ask this
pause
question.
there because I feel like, yeah, go for it.
I gotta ask this question because the saviorism one, because oftentimes when we decide to become coaches, we gotta realize that we can't save no one, but even though we feel like the saviorism piece is there. So how has that experience been for you when it comes to the saviorism piece in your work?
Oh, it's been a really tough journey. So Hayden probably knows, and you probably know that we have to learn things on our own skin so we can guide others through the path.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a brutal journey. So I'm a white woman. I
Mm-hmm.
was very aware before I wrote the book of how often white folks do worse by trying to save people we think are weaker. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
never understood that as deeply as I did after I wrote the book. Um, Saviorism comes from two types of fear, I would say. One is the um, I want to provide for you because I know better than you what's right for you. And that really comes from, it's too painful for me to empathize with your pain as a human being. So I want to change something about the situation so I can go faster. So if right now you shared something in your life that was very painful, a typical white response is, oh, well, I'm sure something good came out of it. It's like, it's a tendency to try to fix it so we don't have to sit in the discomfort of empathizing with other humans. So it either comes from that, or the other thing that I discovered is that most of the kind of nonprofit industrial complex was actually based on and driven by white women who still didn't have full equal rights to men. So I think what we did is we were trying to gain a sense of dignity by contributing to the world, but because we didn't have full rights, instead of advocating for our own rights, what we did is we tried to take care of who we called the more vulnerable. And by doing that, we just made power over in a different way.
Wow, that is, you have wrapped up my brain a little bit there, Rita. I don't know, is your brain a little bit wrapped up there, Hayden? Because I'm listening, and I'm like, wow, okay, this is a different way of thinking about this, and I don't think I'm there yet. What are your thoughts, Hayden?
Yeah, as Rita's sharing about what she's discovered, I'm looking into my life in these situations and seeing what she's saying.
What is showing up for you?
Well, the white women who run these charitable organizations, these non-for-profits, and I can see that very much. They 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 definitely use the word vulnerable, and they don't have that sense of power and freedom in themselves. So they're out there, and maybe they are reacting to something they sense they lack or is lacking. Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, and as we go a little
So
deeper, when it comes to saviorism, go ahead, Rita. Go ahead, Rita.
I think we're on the same wavelength. So the question I've had to ask myself, because your original question was like, how did that impact me? Is I had to start asking myself, am I trying to help this other person because I'm uncomfortable empathizing with their pain? And or am I trying to help this other person because I feel like I don't have enough dignity and self-worth if I don't go fix somebody else? But that's to your point, Hayden. Like, am I trying to fix someone else's life because I don't feel enough self-worth in my own?
That's
That's a
powerful.
very uncomfortable, and it's a very uncomfortable
Yeah.
question for a person who's lived of social justice her whole life. It's like, wait, don't move. Why are you helping right now? Why are you speaking? Why are you talking right now? Like, where is it coming from? Because the intention matters, and the intention propagates more than the words do.
So I gotta say, Rita, you are actually giving me a lot of schooling right now because I'm listening, and this is my phase when I get to when I meet somebody that in your teaching mode. I often find myself in a very listening mode. I was like, oh, let me listen some more. And then sometimes it's good for me to have people I want to ask other questions to trigger something that I'm thinking, because when I start thinking in my learning space, I don't speak a lot. And I think you're taking on the energy of teaching right now. So I would love to hear more about those three aspects you mentioned: the control, the safety, and the saviorism, because those things I think I need to think about a lot somewhere. I don't know how you feel about that, there, Hayden.
Yeah, they're great subjects.
Okay, all right, we're gonna
Yeah.
stick to those. We're gonna stick to those for the conversation. So if we gotta go back I'm gonna go into safety, because when you were speaking around like the vulnerable folks or the folks that are missing something in their life, oftentimes safety the first place they go to, I would think, because they want to feel safe. So when you start tapping into that dimension of the safety piece, and you start unwrapping, peeling back the onion, what are some of the things that you recognize in yourself that you didn't really like? Oh my God, other people are seeing this thing and you're doing it. And what did you figure out that was essential for moving out of that space for you to really empower yourself in that space, if that makes any sense to you, Rita.
Yeah, I'll give an example here so that I don't get too heady. Boundaries. So it's become very fashionable in the social justice space to say, I don't feel safe, therefore you are not respecting my boundaries, right? Or you need more boundaries because I don't feel safe. And what that does is it puts the center of power in someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not helpful for us as human beings. Like if I put my center of power in someone else, I mean, there's less that I can accomplish in the world. I have less freedom and I have less liberation because then my safety depends on someone else. What I've learned is that my safety depends on my knowing myself well enough and knowing my limitations well enough, to be quite honest, that I'm clear about what my boundaries are, right? So if you decided suddenly to go haywire on this podcast and mistreat me, which I don't think is the case because I don't get that sense at all, but like I have the right to leave the podcast. And the person who I was 5 years ago would have felt obligated to stay to the end to prove that I was strong to a fictional audience out there. While I know myself well enough right now to know what my soft spots are. And if you touched some of them and I really felt unsafe, would I get my safety back? Is not by trying to control you and how you behave. It's getting up and leaving and taking care of myself. So we put safety in other people's hands way too often.
Here's my other question. I'm listening. I'm curious to know the work you're doing right now, the thing you're embodying. Why is it so important to you right now?
It's the reason it's always been important to me is because when I have a tremendous sense of empathy, and when other people suffer, I suffer. And I've spent a lot of time healing my own wounds in a way that doesn't have me like jump quickly, right? That I'm not doing it to save the other person. But I believe that I feel this strong sense of empathy because there's something for me to bring to the world. And at this point in my practice, I believe that just the way each one of us has a thumbprint, one thumbprint, right? There are no two thumbprints that are the same in the whole world. Each one of us has a vision to carry through in the world. And this is part of me birthing mine.
If you had to give us the clarity of that vision, what would that vision be?
It's people being able to be raised in communities that see us and respect our dignity for who we are, each and every human being. And it's not only communities, but it's actually a world that functions on the principle of the dignity of human life and all life. I argue our institutions are not based on the dignity of life. They're based on the profit of human life, which is why we don't care about people who don't have money. If we cared on the dignity of human life, we would have very different institutions. Everybody's well-being would be guaranteed. And I believe that just the way we made up this world, we can make up another one. It's just humans made it up. The economy was a concept that was made up. International governance and wars and militaries, it's all made up. Humans have incredible creative power. And I believe that just the way we created everything that we have right now, we can create something else. We just have to decide.
That is very powerful, by the way. And every vision always has an obstacle. So what are some of the one, two, three, top three obstacles that you see standing in the way of your vision right now?
I think the biggest obstacle is that
Or opposition.
people Well, the opposition, the biggest opposition I would say is that systems are designed to preserve themselves. So backlash is a natural evolution of any system. We get surprised when backlash happens, right? Like now there's a backlash against DEI and it's all like, oh my God, there's a like if you look at the old folk who are the black and brown old folk, they're like, what did you expect? You thought it was going to be easy? Like, when was it ever easy? It's never been easy. Liberation has never been easy, right? So there's always a pushback, and it takes strategy and community and movement building to find a way through that pushback. The biggest obstacle I would say is that we think we can do outside change without doing inside change.
Mm.
And we can't. We need them both. It takes the inside change, the community change, and then the system change. If we truly believed that every human being were valuable and equal in dignity, the systems we have would fall apart on their own.
Mm.
They are sustained by our culture because we believe they're the only future possible. We believe that this is the only way to organize a society. We can do better. We can live on the moon. We can do better than this.
Wow. Hayden, I know you wasn't expecting this conversation to go in this direction today, right?
That's been great.
But
Spitting words of wisdom. I like it.
yeah, but if we gotta go back to some of what you talked about, and I love our vision, by the way, and we just kind of close up with some of the obstacles, the opposition. I know you say you work on the business side of the coaching piece, and when it comes to even saviorism for the business piece, what are your thoughts that showed up for you when you think about the business piece and saviorism as a business coach?
My thoughts on the business piece and saviorism.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that I used to have saviorism. Definitely. I wanted to be a savior. I wanted to save people. And when I discovered that by myself, I felt really icky. I was like, oh, is that what's been running me? I I had I called it a hero complex or a savior
Mm-hmm.
complex. Yeah, and I really did. I thought there was something wrong with people. They needed to be fixed or changed, or I was right and I was superior. It was really nasty. So
Mm-hmm.
it's out there. And
Way to
in the
go for
business,
discovering it, Hayden.
what's
Way to
that?
go for seeing it. A lot of
Yeah,
people don't
thank
know they
you.
have it, so way to go. I have that voice in my head too. Well done.
Yeah. I think it came from watching RoboCop and Ninja Turtles as a kid. And there were these heroes fighting the bad guys, and I got a very strong moral sense of what it is to be a man and to be a hero and be brave and fight the bad guys. So anyway, I've dealt with that. That's gone. In the business context, I would say it's definitely present, and I would say that owners will often experience that with their employees and their customers to their own detriment, that they think they need to be there all the time, do all the work, be there for all their customers. They react to everything, like Rita was saying earlier. She's separated herself from her reactions, and it runs them. So it is out there.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
Is it completely gone, or are you aware that you have it so you don't let it drive your life anymore?
Yeah, it will never completely leave. It's something I get to catch and acknowledge and put to the side when it turns up.
Mm.
Yeah, there is definitely a part of me that wants to be a hero. I love Avengers and Spider-Man and all of those movies. I'd love to be one of them. Yeah, I don't think it'll ever fully leave, though I'm aware of it, so it no longer has ownership of me. I can own it.
Mm. When it comes to heroes, I say this a lot because I'm gonna share my little background. So when I was in the military, I did 22 years in the United States Army, retired from it. But when I was
Wow.
in the military, the big question was, who do I want to be a hero to? And
Hmm.
at that time, it was the American population, American family, because I felt it was worth my sacrifice. And so I wanted to be a hero for them. I want to go in and risk my life so I can protect them. That's what I was thinking. And then same thing, once I retired from the military, I came back to that same question, who would I want to be a hero to again? And then it came back to my immigrants and my veterans, because those are the two communities that really helped me really survive and thrive in the military. But then when it comes to people itself, because everybody wants to save, we got the anti-hero and the victim, and then we got the hero and the victim in the middle, and we always trying to go up against the anti-hero, trying to save the victim. But when it comes to in real life, oftentimes we find the part of us that are victimized. And when we overcome that victimization, we want to go back and save people that was in that same situation. But oftentimes we can't save them.
Mm.
We gotta show them the example for them to save themselves. So I recognize that piece. But no, no, when I look for the community identity, I look back at my veterans community and my immigrant community, like, okay, what resources can I bring them? Like, how can I make them more aware of some of the things that cause them to be more victims, and then so they can kind of see the example to say themselves. So that's how I think about that process. Going up against those things that are defeating the folks that are feeling like a victim in that moment because they don't have the resources or the tools or the systems to kind of keep themselves out of that lower place. So
Mm.
when I would listen to Rita's three things: control, safety, and saviorism, I was like, interesting. So what are you guys' thoughts on that? Who wants to go?
Yeah, okay.
Well,
Rita, you've got a thought. I can see it.
no, go ahead. I feel like I've taken some airtime, so go ahead. I can take a step back.
Well, I'd like to acknowledge you, Asher, for your stand and your willingness to do that for people. I think that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And what came to my mind was when you said, show them the way. And I think that's exactly it. We we can't do the work for them. They have to discover their own power and ability to move from victimhood into their own responsibility and power. And yeah, so we're empowering people through who we're being in the world and what we're up to. I
Mm-hmm.
really love that you said that. And I thought of the image of going down into the ditch with them,
Mm-hmm.
being, showing them who we are and saying, hey, come on, you can do this. Come with me, I'll show you the way. I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. What are your thoughts, Rita?
I think we have to be careful when we use the language of inferiority and superiority, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like lower in the ditch. Like I think we have to just be careful. I'm not saying but like these are the things that I pay attention to. You asked me about my journey, right? Like my journey is that now I pay attention to language of superior and inferior like all
Mm.
the time. Because I think there's a part of healing, and coaching is definitely healing, that's always about having a guide.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of having a guide who's been there before for the person who hasn't been there yet. Um, and I think of it as a journey, and and I think language is always tricky here, but as a journey where you're choosing as a guide someone who has been where you want to go, but you haven't been before. Sometimes that is in a ditch and out of a ditch, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that is lowered because, as humans, we repeat the same mistakes over and over. So sometimes we are in ditches over and over again. Um, but sometimes it's not a journey that's bigger or better or lower or higher. It's just different. So to your example, Hayden, of working with business entrepreneurs, like the journey between not being an entrepreneur and being an entrepreneur isn't better or worse. It's just a different journey. So, hey, I'm on this new journey. How can I find a guide that can take me along the way? And how do we, as guides, I think about a mentor who always said to me, Rita, you can't care about the work more than they do. Like your vision can't be bigger than theirs because their vision is what's carrying them through, right? So how do we stay humble in the work so that we're not assuming that we know what is higher or lower for another person, but they get to choose it for themselves?
Mm. There's this saying that it says, not because I am not on the same path as you doesn't mean I'm lost. And oftentimes when we are going on our journey, we see somebody that's on a different path who's like, hey, come over here and do this. Like, no, I'm on my own path, right? Not because I'm not on the same path or you doesn't mean I'm lost. right? I'm on my path, and my path is taking me here and there. So it always come back to what that person really wants. If somebody come to me and say, this is what I want, then right then I can help with the vision of that person. I was having a conversation with my friend today too about, we was talking about vision. So I was asking her the question. I was like, so like, what is it that you really want? And automatically she was going to the place of opposition, obstacles. She started talking about obstacles about the thing that she want. I'm like, no, what is the vision? What is the thing you want? So it's always good to go after the vision first, explain the vision, make it very clear. And from there, do you talk about what's going to oppose your vision? But oftentimes when we think about the thing we really want, we start thinking about the obstacles that's going to prevent us from getting it. Not even taking the time to clearly explain, this is what I really want right here. And these are the things I'm gonna do to get, right? And then after that, okay, what's gonna oppose my vision? And once that's very clear, like, okay, now I can actually do it. Because what's opposed your vision oftentimes is the raw material that's gonna help you get to that vision. But if you never make that vision clear, nobody can see it and help you get there. And I was thinking about that when you guys were having a conversation now. What are your thoughts,
And
Miss
so
Rita? Dr. Rita.
I was just thinking about I love first of all how you elaborate how your mind works, right? Like
Mm,
how you elaborate and connect stories. And one of the things you asked me before is why is this important to me?
mm-hmm,
It's because I was moved, what made me sensitive to all this is that I was moved from Bronx, New York to small town Italy when I was 10 years old.
mm,
And to your point about I'm just on a different path, to everyone around me, I was just wrong. Could you
mm,
imagine, like in the 80s, no internet and cell phones, so we weren't, so we didn't have shared social media. Like I talk different, walk different, dress different, behave different. And it was very awkward for the people around me to not understand. And my parents were coming home, so they didn't really translate for me culturally. Like
mm-hmm,
no one said to me, hey, in this context, if someone follows you home from school in the Bronx, you're in danger and we have to call the cops. But if someone follows you home from school in small town Italy, there are little boys that are making fun of you because you're cute. Like no one explained that to me, right?
mm-hmm,
So not only was I terrified regularly, but I was also judged consistently. And so part of like why I think it's so important to be able to envision something else, as you said, and stay in the vision, not get caught in the fear, but be able to stay in the vision and bring
mm-hmm,
that vision forth, um, is because there's just so much that our world can be and that we can be as humans. And I think sometimes we just scratch the surface of that because we're so caught up in judging people who are on different paths than we're on or have different cultural backgrounds or different personalities or different quirks.
mm. Well, thank you. Well, I think Aiden can relate to this a lot because the coaching life is pretty much this. He's always trying to get that person to really clarify the vision they really have, like the thing that without thinking about what's gonna oppose it, right? Just give me that thing that you really want, and from there we can work through the obstacles. So on your side of the world, I would love to know your vision there, Hayden. What's your vision for the thing that you really want to achieve in the world?
there's a couple of things I'd love to see. I'd love to be a part of eliminating depression and anxiety from the world. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
a plague that's taking over. That's something we can completely remove through self-awareness and training. So that's one thing I'd love to be a part of. The other thing is, and I think Rita will be on point with this. I think about Einstein and the environment he grew up in, and how his parents would invite over either a science teacher, and they would talk about science at the dinner table when he was growing up, and that sparked his interest in physics and in the universe. And I wonder, like, what if we could put every child in an environment where they could foresee their future, their vision, and what's
Mm-hmm.
possible for them and what they love, and we could nurture that passion and they could pursue it fully. What would happen to the world if every child could be an Einstein in their own way, their full potential? I think there's just too much untapped potential in humanity, and the current systems aren't working. The schooling system doesn't work to unlock that potential. It tells people to sit down, to shut up, when they can go to the toilet, when they can eat, what they're to think, not how to think. And it's not doing us any good. It is limiting our potential as a species. And I would love to see an environment created where human potential is unleashed and that becomes the normal.
Mm. Wow. I think we just got Hayden unleashed there. What you think, Rita? We just got Hayden unleashed just
I
now.
agree with you. I agree with you. If I can get super political for a second, though I don't know politically where you guys are. That's why I believe in universal basic income, because I don't believe that humans would get super lazy and not do anything if we all had universal basic income. I think we could get rid of wars fairly easily with universal basic income, because if we didn't have these gaps between poor countries and rich countries and gaps within poor countries and rich countries, I don't think we would need militaries. So that would be fair, or we could reduce them drastically. But also, I think COVID proved that with enough income, people get more creative. Like, there's so many people in the United States that got like money from the pandemic and went back to law school or started their own businesses. And yes, it's true that people didn't want to work at McDonald's anymore, but it's not because they were home and not doing anything. It's because they had actually elevated their game.
Mm.
And so I absolutely agree with you about unleashing human potential. And I think vision is the antidote to fear. So when we think about how much of our communication and our politics and our journalism right now is driven by fear, I would argue on all sides, not only on the side that seems most obvious, but on all sides it's actually fear driven. Because one side is saying, we're basically saying, if the other side wins, it's going to be the end of the world. Um, and the antidote to that is vision. And I would argue that one of the reasons our politics feels so stuck is because there is a lack of vision and there is a lack of reimagining what could actually be different. And so to your absolutely unleashing human potential, Hayden, I'm totally in for that.
Nice. Let's do it.
Here is something that I will side with you on that, Rita, because you're right, the fear piece. But they're saying that you can teach anything but hunger. Like hunger for the thing that really ties into your purpose. And I think when we all have that time to really reflect, time to sit back and really think and really be in our space, we could find that hunger to go for that thing that we love to be on purpose on. And oftentimes we don't do that because we're so busy. We're so trapped in the survival piece of things that we can't even find the hunger to go after the thing that we want to be on purpose on. And you're right about if we have that basic life support thing that is taken care of, a lot of us will find the real purpose we want to have, but we are surviving. We're being in survival mode too much that we can't find it. We can't put eyes on it because we're so stuck into one thing. But yet COVID wake up a lot of people realizing like I can
Mhm.
actually do something different, right? That entrepreneurial spirit started coming out. A lot of people like I can do this thing, I can create this thing on my own because I had a lot of time to think, to be in myself, to be in my space, and see how my hunger starts showing up, not just for food, but for my purpose. And I think COVID can unleash that a bit. What you got, Rita?
Also, I think COVID had us face a lot of our fears. So I lost all of my work the week of the shutdown. Part of why I wrote Digging Up the Seeds of White Supremacy is that I had lost everything. So I was
Mm.
no longer concerned about losing further because I'd already lost I mean, I didn't lose my house. Luckily, I, had a family who can look after me, and I got a little of the subsidy, so I had food on the table. So I didn't have to worry about my primary needs, but I had zero work, right? And there's something about how transformative it is to
Mm.
face our worst fears. So I
Yeah.
faced one of my worst fears was to have no work, and not having work for a certain amount of months, not just days, had me get more creative and imagine, like, get in tune with that um what do I really want? What's
Mm.
that hunger? And I believe we all have it. To Hayden's point about how screwed up our education system is, I think we train people out of it. We train people to be realistic. We train people to suppress it. And we train people to not believe in it. But just as easily, we could train people to dream. And I think we all have it. It's just a matter of giving ourselves, having a space in our lives. And I think that's what we do as coaches, is giving people permission to dream. I remember a client I worked with, it was our first call, and she was leading a foundation, and she kept saying, I don't have to choose. I just want the people to have the money, so their vision. I'm like, no, you're the center. You also have your vision. And we dug and dug and dug, and at mid-call, this person, basically this woman who was 60 something, burst out crying and said, I was like, what was your little girl dream? And she burst out crying and said, I just want to create places where people can dance. And I said to her, what's wrong with having your foundation just do that? Just fund people for creating spaces to dance. Let the rest go. Let it be you. Let it be your footprint in the world.
I could see you getting emotional a little bit there, Dr. Rita. That's feel like a special moment for you with that person. Hayden, what is your biggest fear, man? I'm curious.
What is my biggest fear? I've conquered my fear of women. I've conquered my fear of heights. I've conquered my fear of public speaking. Karaoke. I do not like karaoke. You couldn't pay me enough money to get in front of people and sing. It's terrifying.
Come on. Fear right now. Come on, right now.
Stop it. No. No, what I think about, and touching on this basic income. Thanks. You're welcome. I know, right? How silly. Professional coach afraid of singing in front of people. What's something I'm afraid of, and also optimistic about, with the generation of AI and robotics that's coming, and many of the jobs, lawyers, accountants, are going to be replaced in the near future. There's going to be another mass layoff of professionals, and kids going to universities now are going to find that their degrees won't be needed. So there's this space for creating a new world, which is what we've been talking about, and this possibility of, well, if no one needs to work anymore, then what? Then what's possible? What if with robotics and AI, because we genuinely create abundance that we can supply the entire world with, and work is now redundant, what's that going to bring? And what will that revolution or evolution for humanity look like? So I got fear attached to that. It could go either way. With great power comes great responsibility and great ability to destroy. That can happen. You think of a nuclear reaction, it can power a city, it can flatten a city. With this AI and robotics, same thing, but at a whole new level of power for humanity. And I'm concerned which direction that will head. We could have this world where AI turns, or the certain people get their hands on AI and have horrible intentions, or it could go the other way. And maybe there's a future where money is no longer even existent. There's so much of everything, you simply go online and order it, and no one needs money anymore. So I'm optimistic and afraid at the same time of what's coming.
I've listened to you. I've been listening to you, Hayden. And I think I see why you're a business coach, because you were a visionary. I can tell. I don't know if Rita can see the same thing, but you're a visionary. The thing that you start forecasting, the foresight that you're stepping into, I can see why you're a business coach. I can see that visionary genetical brand is in you, man. It's in you. So I just want to congratulate you on that piece of it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we are at the point to wrap up. And I would love to know if anyone got to reach you, what is the best way for them to reach you? And if you have any big takeaway or giveaway you want to share with anyone, what would that be? And I would start with you, Hayden.
If you want to reach me, I joined LinkedIn today, and you can try and find me and be one of my first 20 connections. That would be lovely. I'd love to have you on there and say hello. I'm also on Google Maps. I have a profile on Google Maps. So if you Google Maps Hayden Griffiths in the UK, I'll come up as mindset performance coaching. The biggest takeaway is don't don't see fear as something to move away from. When you have a fear, find a way to move towards it. I promise you, on the other side of your fear is your power, your confidence, your freedom. Everything you want lies just on the other side of it. So whenever you feel a fear, well, not whenever. Okay, there's situations where you are in danger. So pay attention to the difference. But let's say fear of public speaking, move towards it. Your freedom, your power, your fulfillment lies just on the other side. I promise you, it's not far.
Mm. And if you don't mind spelling name out completely so they can hear it, just in case somebody. Uh,
Yep, my name's Hayden Griffiths. So that's Haydn Griffiths. And it's mindset. So MINDSET and performance coaching. PERFORMANCE
all right, we got it. All right, Rita, Dr. Rita. I'm sorry, I keep going Rita.
That's
But
okay. That's okay.
what
Um,
is your how they can reach and what is your biggest takeaway? Giveaway.
you can reach me on LinkedIn and I'm pretty easy to reach. My name is Rita, Rita Fierro, F as in Frank, Ierro. My website is Dr. Rita Writes, as in DrRitawrites. So Dr. Rita Writes as in writing,
Mhm.
.com. And and you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Dr. Rita Writes and a bunch of other places. I'm pretty easy to find. My book, Digging Up the Seeds of White Supremacy, is on Amazon and anywhere else books are sold. There's also an Audible version for people
Mhm.
who prefer audio. I You said something incidentally, Hayden, and I just want to build upon it. Our bodies have tremendous wisdom around real fear of real safety danger versus this just general fear of exposure, loss of reputation, and other stuff. My invitation is something that for me has made the world of difference, is to learn your bodily reaction to real safety fear so that you know the difference between that and everything else. Because when my body tells me that I am in physical danger,
Mhm.
I know how to, it's like a huge alarm, like from belly to head, my whole body starts shaking, and I know to respect that. Like that means get out of the situation you're in now. Get home as fast as you can, right? But all the other situations are just, they're phony fears. And as you said very eloquently, Hayden, there's a whole life of freedom and liberation on the other side of that, and that's worth moving through.
Wow, thank you. And my closing question for both of you is what is that one or two thing when people do it drives you crazy? If you don't mind sharing that. So I will start with you, Dr. Rita.
I love that question. I don't know what the answer is.
Well, if you had a thing,
Well,
start with Hayden. If you don't have it, and then we can come back
yeah,
to you.
go,
Mate, I
Hayden. You
could
go
come up with
first.
many.
I was way too entertained by the question to actually think straight. I'm like giggling all over the place over here.
Yeah, yeah, Hayden.
Yeah. Let me start with what really irritates me if I'm in communication with someone and I share my perspective, share my idea, and then there's no acknowledgement. It's as if they didn't even hear it. They were so in their head about what I was saying that it's just there's what's the point of even speaking if the other person's even listening? Sometimes that drives me up the wall.
Anything else? I need
Bring
another one.
more. Yeah, definitely. When I used to have arguments with my wife and she would bring up something for 5 years ago, I'm like, what has that got to do with right now? Maybe she was just poking me, she knew it got to me. I don't know. That would drive me up the wall too.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. Rita.
So mine are still very connected to what I do around race and racism. So one is, well, I really hate being condescended upon. In particular, when I'm talking an area of like my expertise. So I've been studying racism and systemic racism for 30 years. And it's not uncommon for folks who just read an article yesterday to think they're an expert.
Oh,
So
yeah.
people who treat me like I just woke up yesterday when they just woke up yesterday. That pisses me off big time. I've gotten better at having some grace with it, but that really pisses me off. The other thing that pisses me off is that white privilege is a bubble, in particular in the United States. And it's a bubble of fear. It's a bubble of, oh, you can't get to Africa. You can't go to Africa, you'll get sick. You can't walk in another neighborhood, you'll get shot. You can't sit on the floor because there are germs. Like, it's a bubble of fear. It looks poshy and pretty and polished, but it's constant fear. And I, who have lived my life in opposition to most of those fears, who have been to Africa without getting sick, who sits on the floor all the time, like I, who live in opposition to those fears, get very irritated when people try to convince me that my way is wrong and theirs is right when they've never stepped out of their bubble and I actually have.
Mm. Wow. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom. And you have tuned into Pandora's Awareness podcast, a place where we collect stories and circulate life-changing wisdom. And you've gotten some wisdom from Hayden and Dr. Rita. And I appreciate you guys showing up and blessing me with the generous use of your time. Any last word before we close out from both of you?
Thank you.
Mm,
Thanks for listening.
of course.
Yeah, thank you for your hospitality. There's a way that you listen and weave with curiosity, but also joy and lightheartedness. And I really welcome that. Thank you so much for having us. This
You're
was
welcome.
delicious.
This was delicious. I like it.
It absolutely was delicious.
All right.